What if the secret to scaling your business lies not in capital or connections, but in the art of delegation? Kasim Aslam is a serial entrepreneur with two large and successful exits. As the founder of Solutions 8, he transformed a modest Google Ads agency into a global leader, managing over $500 million in ad spend annually. His journey didn't stop there. He recognized the power of remote talent and co founded Pareto Talent, a company dedicated to connecting entrepreneurs with top tier executive assistants from emerging markets. Qasim's insights into digital marketing and business growth have earned him accolades, including being named one of the top 50 digital marketing thought leaders in the US by the University of Missouri and receiving Azima's 2017 Tim Award for Person of the Year. He's also the author of the Amazon bestseller, The 7 Critical Principles of Effective Digital Marketing. But beyond the titles and achievements, Qasim's story is one of resilience, innovation, and a relentless pursuit of freedom, not just financial, but personal and operational. He believes in building businesses that serve your life, not consume it. And before we start this episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth, and the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Jane, a graduate who says, and I quote, "The Deep Wealth Mastery Program prevented me from making what would have been one of the biggest mistakes of my career. I almost signed on the dotted line with an unsolicited offer that I now realize would have shortchanged my hard work and my future had I accepted that offer. Deep Wealth Mastery has tilted the playing field to my advantage." Or how about Lynn? Wow, he gets right to the point, and I quote, "Deep Wealth Mastery is one of the best investments ever made because you'll get an ROI of 100 times that. Anyone who doesn't go through this will lose millions." And as you're listening to these testimonials, are you wondering if you have the time? Are you even thinking that you've got this covered? You have the advisors or people in your network? Well, I got to tell you, these myths, they're often behind the 90% failure rate for liquidity events. Think about it. You have one chance to get it right for your financial freedom. You really want to make it count. And when it comes to time, let's hear what William has to say. We just got in this testimonial. William says, and I quote, "I didn't have the time for Deep Wealth Mastery, but I made the time and I'm glad I did. What I learned goes far beyond any other executive program or coach I've experienced." So what do you think? As I hear that, that's exactly what gets me out of bed every day. That's my mission. That's the team's mission here at Deep Wealth, to literally change the social fabric of society, one business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. And my Deep Wealth Nation, what I want you to know, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it isn't theory. It's from the trenches. It's the only one based on a 9-figure deal. And that deal, that was my deal. You know my story. I said no to a 7-figure offer. I created a system that later on, myself and my business partners, we said yes to a different buyer, a different offer, a 9-figure deal. That's what we now call the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or the Scale for Ultimate Sales system. It's built by business owners for business owners. So if you're interested in growing your profits, for preparing for a future liquidity event, and that may be 2 years away, it could be 22 years away, whatever the time may be, you want to do this now, and you want to optimize your post-exit life. Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. To get started, email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. You'll receive all the information about the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or better yet, why not hop on a complimentary strategy call? We'll go through exactly where your business is today and what's standing between you and your financial independence and your dreams. So that's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you. They're looking to grow their businesses, create market disruptions, and unlock their financial freedom to get what they deserve. And whether you've been in business for 3 years, 40 years, you're a startup, you're in manufacturing, you're in high tech, low tech, whatever the case may be, come on in and network with other business owners. It's a safe space. It's a confidential space with business owners, with businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. So again, the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Deep Wealth Nation, welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. I have a very special guest in the house of Deep Wealth today, a two-time post-exit entrepreneur, an author, a thought leader, a brilliant guy. He's going to blow your mind today in what we're talking about, but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. I'm going to keep you in suspense. But Deep Wealth Nation, I want to ask this question. It's a rhetorical question. Do you want to grow your business? Are you looking for talent, but you don't know where to look or it just doesn't make sense? Do you wish you had, wow, I can wave the magic wand, have the right people show up to do the right things, have them on the right bus in the right seat? We're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. Kasim, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. It's a true pleasure to have you with us. There's always a story behind the story. You have quite the story. So, what's your story? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, story behind the story is hopefully not going to sound too America's Got Talent. Have you ever watched those shows where everybody's just got that horrible sob story that makes you root for them, but in a way that doesn't feel integrous, right? It draws on sympathy more than I think it should. So I'm going to try not to do that. And I actually think that you can't hide from it either. So I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was a welfare baby, basically. And I was very convinced for the entirety of my childhood that money was going to solve all my problems. And so from 7 years old, Jeffrey, I've been hustling. On the way to school, I'd walk to school and I'd pass this rundown gas station called Lone Star. And they had this barrel of candy right as you walk in. There's this barrel of candy, and I'd grab a fistful and you could buy candy for 10 cents each. And then I'd go to school and I'd sell it for 25 cents. And the business ideas only got worse from there. And that was my genesis as an entrepreneur, had way more to do with financial trauma than anything else. In retrospect, I actually realized that I can call myself a welfare baby, and yet I was blessed to be born in a country where we decided that there should be some level of social safety net. My mom went blind. She couldn't work anymore. She applied for Social Security and got it. It wasn't an exceptional amount of money, but it was some money. It kept us fed and it kept us clothed and it kept us housed, which in so many ways, if you think about it, is just like a trust. And so I can say I'm a welfare baby, or I could say I was a trust fund baby, and that trust just happened to be the United States Social Security Office. But one way or the other, we were cared for, and it came from a system that I'm eternally grateful for and quite confident I can pour back into now. And so that was the beginning of the beginning. Hopefully, I didn't go too far back. That really was the thing that made me want to be a business owner and an entrepreneur, because I think even children can see the leverage in creatively solving problems, which is all entrepreneurship is.
So, my goodness, there is so much there. Before we begin, though, I just want to salute you for your vulnerability, being so open with us and sharing all that. Not easy. And the other narrative, which isn't your narrative, thankfully, and most people would understand this. Hey, I didn't have the best beginnings and didn't really have things work out for me, didn't have money, and your life could have taken a very different path, which thankfully it didn't. And you're now successful, you're helping other people, you're really making a difference out there. Was there any one point growing up, or was it a collection of things growing up that allowed you to go from where you were to this successful entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, multiple exits, changing the rules of the game, particularly in industries that aren't easy industries, like what you did with Solutions 8 and some of the other ventures that you've done? Not easy stuff, but you've done it. Is there a part of your childhood growing up that you attribute to that?
I have an odd and maybe uncanny comfort with failure, which I think, to be honest with you, and I don't like just putting this hat on right away, but there is some truth to it. I got an autism diagnosis in my late 30s
Okay.
from a therapist. And I was the one that asked him because we were circumnavigating some issues that I was working through. And I finally came out and I was like, "Do you think I'm autistic?" And he laughs and he goes, "Definitely. And what does that mean now?" Like, I don't think those diagnoses mean the same thing when you receive them as an adult. It's not the same impact from a label perspective. But I do think that my comfort with failure probably comes a little from that. Failure just feels like data.
Mhm.
So that's one half of it, might just be between nature and nurture. That was the nature element. The nurture element was because of our upbringing, I'm referring to me and my brother, there was a lot of instability. I got beat up a lot. I got picked on a lot, which again, you can look at and you're like, oh, woe is me. And at a certain point, you get comfortable with life throws punches. And I'm not saying that didn't impact me. I think it did. And I'm still working through some of that more now, maybe than ever. And I got used to being punched. And I think as an entrepreneur, you need to get used to being punched because far too often people fall off the horse and just refuse to get back on. And entrepreneurship it's a game of iteration. So imagine stepping up into a batter box and taking one swing missing and saying, well, never going to do that again. That just there's no framework within which that could possibly work or function, even in a statistical model where you're assume outliers, right? Nobody could ever be successful with that. And for whatever reason, I got really good at looking at the key performance indicator being the number of swings I took, not the number of connects I had. And that's been extraordinarily helpful.
I love that KPI analogy. And I feel you're being modest because I'll just put this out there. You're resilient, yet there's so many people who do get punched, as you experience going through life, sadly, and unfortunately, it shouldn't be part of our childhood. Somehow it always seems to be.
Yeah.
Yet other people don't get up and it forever changes their trajectory. And with you, you bounce back from that. And you didn't let that become your story, your narrative. In fact, despite that, you got up. Okay, I'm back at it. What else can I learn from this? Happened, don't love it, but I'm going to be resilient and I'm going to figure out the next one. And you weren't afraid of stepping back up. And again, anything looking back or lessons along the way or advice that you got that allowed you to do that? Because not everyone, you may take it for granted, but not everyone has that ability to do that.
Yeah. You know, my mom, she was blind. She went blind. I can't imagine how terrifying that is to just be in the dark. And what an example she was as someone who, in spite of everything, just kept going. A single mom, living on Social Security, which is nothing. It's a pittance. And she raises these two little boys the best she can. And so I think I had a really good example. And to be honest with you, there was no other option. Tony Robbins always says it's either inspiration or desperation. It's usually desperation. And it's either just curl up and die or get up and find a way. And that felt like the preferable option. I think that was it. My friend told me very recently, I went to a group, I'm in a group called Front Row Dads, and I went to a Front Row Dad meeting. It's just a bunch of men that want to be better fathers. Extraordinary group of humans. It's run by a guy named John Vroman. And somebody was giving somebody else advice that I was just overhearing, and it ended up being the best advice I'd gotten in quite some time. And he said, all you need is faith in a next step. And I feel that very strongly about life. Like we want a plan. We want the framework and the standard operating procedure and the book and the manual. And that's okay. And sometimes those things exist, sometimes. But more often than not, you really have to build the plane as you fly it, build the bridge as you cross it, pick your analogy. So if you're comfortable, I actually have a poster on my wall that says the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with, which is a Tony Robbins quote. It's the second time I've mentioned Tony Robbins. If you're comfortable with the idea that all you need is faith, and faith doesn't need to be religious, incidentally. Faith is the belief that things can be better assuming you interact with the universe in a way that complies with natural principles. So if you're hardworking and integrous and consistent, I actually have faith that most things work out most of the time. Does lightning strike? Sure. And just statistically speaking, I think if you do the right things, the right thing happens. That's faith. And then I do believe in God. And so there's an added layer, but you don't have to have that added layer for faith to exist. And then the next step feels like a dismissive part of that quote, but that's, I think, exceptionally poignant. Most people miss that part. It's like you don't need to figure out how to get to the top of the mountain. You need to figure out where to put your foot next. And if you can do that, then you'll know where you're to put your other foot next. And then it's just left, 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 right. And on a long enough timeline, bet money and get to the top. And most of the success that I've achieved has actually been that. It hasn't been planning. It hasn't been like 4-year breakdown with incremental progress reports and ongoing reporting. None of it's been linear. It's been a very broken road built via faith in the next step.
Faith, you're talking my language. I know there's some in Default Nation. They're going to hear that. They hear the word God. We turn them off right away. Just between me and you, and I may lose all the listeners at this point, I'll share, like you, faith has just been instrumental. And whenever I have not been on that path, wow, that's where the dark clouds appear
Oh, yeah.
and not so great things happen. And that's my own doing. That's my own ego stepping in the way. But let me ask you this, because you've had two successful exits, and from the two successful exits that you've had, many an entrepreneur would say, I'm hanging up my hat. I'm done
Yeah.
and I'm just going to enjoy. And so, with that in mind, you've had two exits, both successful. Lessons learned looking back, anything that you can share with us?
Oh, golly. Yeah. I wasn't prepared. My first exit was to my business partner. I just sold my half of the company to him. So it didn't feel real. It didn't feel like a real exit is when a brand new entity comes, does due diligence, says, yes, this is worth buying.
Mm-hmm.
So the first exit was a gimme in so many ways. There are people that might even take umbrage with my definition, which I'd be okay with. The second exit was real. I had 60 some odd unsolicited offers. I was the belle of the ball and for a very brief period that mostly was luck, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
It just had to do with the ecosystem at the time, which is, I hear that a lot from my friends that have had exits. They're like, dude, I was right place, right time, thank God. And I did everything wrong. I did everything, technically speaking, I did everything wrong. I had no tax planning, no preparation. I paid $1 million, literally $1 million more in taxes than I need to had I done
Uh-huh.
any amount of prep, which was, to be honest with you, I don't even know how I could have done that differently. So it was just a lesson to learn for the next time. I also did everything wrong personally. I wasn't prepared for the impact my exit would have on me psychologically,
Hmm.
mentally, emotionally. I defined myself by what I'd built and by the fact that I had this thing. And when it was gone, it was hard. The thing that was hardest about it was I kept telling myself when I have money, I'll be happy. Post my first exit, I was a millionaire. But what you already know is that means nothing. Like you can't retire on $1 million. And especially depending on what you've done with your assets and what your quality of life is. I live very humbly. I live in a home that's very nice, I think, but it's two standard deviations beneath my current tax bracket. I drive Hyundais and Kias and because you can't beat the warranty. And I just don't need to play the San Diego Beach House game. Not that there's anything wrong with that game, but I feel like for me and where I am, I'd rather have the cash. I'd rather be liquid. So I kept telling myself once it was $10 million. I had a check written to myself. I taped on my screen that was $10 million. I wanted $10 million net to me after taxes. I've generated a $12 million net worth pre-divorce and post-divorce. I cut a handsome amount of that out. But I reached this goal that I thought was going to make me feel successful. And it's so hard to get what you want and then have to face the fact that it doesn't. It feels weird. And it also feels whiny. Dude, shut the hell up. Are you out of your damn mind? You're a decamillionaire. You're in the 1%. You did the thing, but there's only so many Mai Tais by the beach. You still want to chase meaning and contribution. And I'll tell you, money made me feel safe. That it absolutely did do. Especially growing up as a poor kid. I don't want to tell you money doesn't buy happiness because I think that a key ingredient to happiness is safety. And I do feel like money bought me safety. But it only gets you so far. And then there's so many other things. A friend of mine said safety is an inside job. So I could have felt safe without the money. And then there's more about life that's an inside job that you might not realize until you have the money. And I've seen that in a lot of my friends. You end up being thrust into this circle of people that all have the same luxury. And I can tell you as a statistical and anecdotal truism, they're not any happier. As a matter of fact, they might be less so because there are just some harsh realities that we're forced to face. That doesn't mean don't go seek it out because I think you should. And I think that it opens opportunities that I'm really grateful to have. And I've been able to make an impact in ways that I didn't know I could. And just be careful to manage your expectations because that jolt of success I expected to feel, or that climbing the mountain, or the Super Bowl moment where I get to spike the ball in the end zone, like none of that happened. None of that happened. And it requires more responsibility from you to take ownership out of what you feel. Because before I got to blame everything that I felt on the fact that I just wasn't where I wanted to be. It's like, oh, well, I know I don't feel great about it, but that's because I haven't done the thing. As soon as I do the thing, and then you build up all these expectations and you get there and you're like, oh, good golly, is this all there is?
My goodness. Again, so much there. You're right. Money doesn't buy happiness. It does buy safety. It does lubricate life and make things smoother for you. Happiness does come from within, but money can go a long way. And so, two exits by your side now, and you have a great runway ahead for you. And yet you throw your hat in the ring again. And this time, based on what we're talking about offline, it sounds like something very personal for you. It fires you up, and you're very passionate about that. Why don't you share with us what that's all about?
Yeah, well, it's multivariant. I built a business on the backs of international labor, which is a caustic way to say that, isn't it? It feels predatory. And I don't think that it was. I pay people more than they'd ever make domestically. I give them meaningful work. I let them work from home on a flexible schedule. I think I was the best boss most people had, and I was told that as often as not. And yet, there's the majority of the world doesn't have access to opportunities that we have in the emerged world. So if you're in Western Europe or North America, and even North America is a misnomer. I think if you're in the US, Canada, what we have is extraordinary. What we've built is extraordinary, and we're not grateful enough for it. And I don't care how grateful somebody is, unless you have a very strong anthropological view of time and humanity, the gratitude that we hold should be multiplied by many factors because we are blessed. And the poorest of us lives better than the wealthiest of humanity 150 years ago. And we have so much opportunity. And this is where I'm going to get in trouble. By most people, probably not your listeners, but most people hate when I say it's so easy. Jeffrey, I'm a welfare baby, dude. Like I came from quite literally within the confines of common definitions and as it pertains to just the emerged world, came from nothing. And before I'm 40 years old, I hit a deca million. Are you kidding me? I'm a college dropout. I have no education to speak of. I had no connection to no networks. I just worked my ass off. And that's not me. That's my environment. My environment allowed for that. And I refuse to accept anybody who tells me that's not possible. They can, to be honest with you, pound sand. Like I'm inaccessible to the idea that I'm unique in some way, but it's because of these opportunities that have been given to me by people greater than me that have created environments and countries and sets of rules and law and order that make this accessible. We have access and it's extraordinary. So there's the thesis. Put it on a shelf for a moment. Most of the world doesn't have that. If you go to Latin America, North Africa, Eastern Europe, all of Asia, it's hubris to think that those countries don't produce as many extraordinarily brilliant people as we do. Obviously, they do. Statistically speaking, how could you think otherwise unless you're violently racist? And I don't think anybody is anymore. I think that we've actually flattened that curve too. And they don't have access to what we have. But for some reason, when it comes to looking for help, entrepreneurs still only outsource the grunt work. And then they expect that all of their brain work, all their smart work is going to come domestically. And the opposite is true. We can't afford top tier talent domestically. Because if you're in the US or Canada, those kids don't want to work for you. They want to work for Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, or they want to go work for the fancy startup offering stock options because they could potentially be a billionaire. Or most importantly, they want to go work for themselves. Why would they work for you? They can make twice as much working half as much and then build their own equity. And yet we're still scrambling for that talent where you can go to Bogota, Colombia. You can pay somebody 5 times what they make domestically, which is still a fraction of what you'd have to pay somebody here. You can pay them 5 times what they make domestically, pull them out of a call center or whatever other soul sucking job they're currently in because they don't have access to the same level of opportunity. Let them work from home, let them work on a semi flexible schedule, and most importantly, give them meaningful work. And what you receive in return is something that Western employers aren't used to. It's gratitude. And these people will run through walls. They're the best employees I've ever had in my entire life. And the things that they can create and the things that they can generate will blow your mind. So if you've ever found yourself saying there's no such thing as good help these days, if you want something done, do it yourself, try me. Go to Latin America, find yourself. I'm not telling you to just throw a rock and hire whoever. Go to the top of the heap, but the top of the heap is actually available and accessible to you. And when you find these people, my first EA became my director of social. My second EA became my director of automation. My third EA became my CTO, managed my entire exit, which was a SoftBank-backed exit, by the way. So there's Goldman Sachs, Ivy Leagues, douchebags, basically giving me an 8-month-long proctology exam. This kid, this child, he was a university student, Ukrainian national, in Poland when I hired him, moved back to Ukraine, and then I got him over to the States on an H-1B visa when Russia attacked. While in the Ukraine, he manages my entire exit. He's now my best friend and my business partner in Pareto Talent. That talent is available and accessible to everybody. And the thing is, Jeffrey, is I'm way more successful than I deserve to be. I've built 6 multi-million-dollar businesses. Every single one of them has been built on somebody else's talent. I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I don't know how to run Google Ads. I never have. I never will. I have no intention to. I did it because I found the best Google Ads people. I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet before I knew anything about real estate investing or lead generation. I own the largest English-speaking Montessori community in the world. I'm not a trained Montessorian, and I don't own a Montessori school. But I do this because I can go find this talent that's available and accessible to all of us, and I just get out of their way. I own AEO.co. I'm about to launch an AEO agency. Most people don't know this, but SEO is dead because search is dead. And the new endeavor is going to be answer engine optimization. And I'm going to be the world authority in answer engine optimization. Here's what's funny. I have one employee. His name's Julian. He's a young man in Bogota, Colombia, speaking of, and he built the whole company for me. He wrote the book, he created the community, he developed the agency. We have 4 full-time employees and a part-time employee that he manages that do nothing but check how LLM source our citations. He built the whole damn thing, and I did nothing. But I own this business. And obviously our incentives are aligned. And I actually had a conversation with him 2 days ago saying, you're going to be a very wealthy man, and I want to make sure that you manage that appropriately and that I don't lose you to that. But that talent is so accessible. And at the risk of getting too soapboxy or too preachy, if you want to make a difference in the world, I don't believe in charity any longer. I've worked with too many nonprofits. It's a snake eating its own tail. Nonprofits are there to support the mechanism that is the nonprofit, not whatever mission they've stated. That's almost a ubiquitous truth. To put that in perspective, I was a primary vendor for NPower, which is a Bill Gates funded nonprofit that provides nonprofits with technology services. I worked with thousands, not hyperbolic, not an exaggeration, thousands of nonprofits. And I cannot begin to stress the inefficiency of these organizations. Good hearts, good people, poor execution. If you really want to help, it's employment. Help people. It's the teach a man to fish. If you give somebody a job and they're making more than they could make domestically and they're working from home, that has anthropological implications. Imagine a mom, my single mom. In the US, we had Social Security. You don't have that in Colombia, not to the same degree anyway. So you take this mom, you let her work from home, which automatically, the minute there's a parent in the household, what happens? Drug use goes down, teen gang involvement goes down, teen pregnancy goes down, literacy goes up. Let them work from home. Let them work on a semi-flexible schedule. If you want to go to ballet, that's great. Don't ask me. Go to your kid's ballet recital and then just make it up on the other end of it. Treat them like adults and giving them meaningful work. Pay them more than they make domestically. And look at what happens from an economic perspective. I have 100 trained DAs right now in my talent agency. I hope by the end of next year I'll have 1,000, and by the end of the year that follows, I'll have 10. And really, if we think through this endeavor, if we can find these people and if we can employ them and we can give them these opportunities, we can change the world. And by the way, it's not a purely philanthropic endeavor because the impact they'll have on your business is incalculably large. The business I sold had 40% margins in the agency space, which is a labor space. That industry aims, this is a HubSpot statistic, and HubSpot has more data on agencies than any other company that I know of. HubSpot says the high water mark for a media agency like that is 20%. The high water mark. My margins were at 40% when I sold because I was using international talent. And the international talent I was using was the best of the best. And I still get them at a discount. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. We can talk about the petrodollar and the pernicious lie that is fiat currency and the fact that we keep everybody else's economy suppressed because of how we do international commerce. And maybe that turns some people off, maybe it doesn't, I don't care. But the truth is that we can all agree with we have opportunities other people don't have. And we can help open up those opportunities to everybody's benefit.
So, an observation and then a question for you. And the observation is simply this. And I know a lot of the people in Deep Wealth Nation, maybe they're more open to it than others, but it's still going to be there. There's a prevalent view. You're taking advantage of a workforce. And I'm going to put it out there. It's simply not true. I have a private cigar business. It's invitation only, VIP, all those other kinds of things. Also in Latin America, relative to North American standards, what the labor force gets paid, to your point, it's dollars a day. But what people don't realize, when you factor in the conversion rate, it's huge. So
Right.
going from US dollars into the local currency. And then you also factor in the cost of living. And then you factor in what it does for that family and the prestige that it brings and the honor that it brings. It's a very different story when you look at it from the eyes of the people that are going through that. Capitalism, democracy isn't perfect. Lots of issues, but it's the best system around relative to the alternatives. And here you are really handpicking talent to give them a shot at life that they may not otherwise have in their country. And it's a win-win-win. A win for you, it's a win for them, it's also a win for the customers. So that's the observation. Question for you is you're 10xing. Okay, I have 100 EAs. I hope to have that by 1,000, and then after that, 10,000. And you've also said, I don't have to know how to do it. I just have to know the who. So it's the who, not the how. I'm going to 10x the business. I love that. That's our language here at Deep Wealth. Share with us that philosophy. Can you give us some more insights on that?
I don't love planning, to be honest with you, as a business endeavor because I've seen how necessary it is to be nimble, especially in the age of AI where everything changes on a daily basis and there's no way for you to control. There's no control group. You can't play a board game when the board keeps changing. It's near impossible. And so I like goals. I want to employ 1,000 people. When I'm done with that, I want to employ 10,000 people. Great goal. And then I like being very nimble and very active. This is what's interesting is I don't think, and again, I hope this is okay. I don't want to come on your podcast and then begin lobbing grenades in a direction that might contradict the core ethos. I don't believe in passive income any longer. I think that there was a passive income dream that was very real for a very long time. And there might still be with things like real estate, but it's not earned passive income, that's investment income. I think for people to build businesses that passively yield, man, I just don't see that happening because if you look at it from a definition perspective, anything that can yield passive value in the post-AI world is something AI can do. It used to be that you, as the person, as a software engineer, a developer, an entrepreneur, a business owner, had to create the mechanism, the system, the process, because there's only four things we can sell. We can sell products, programs, processes, and people. So in order to have a passive yield, you had to create the process that generated the product and or empowered the people in order to accomplish this endeavor. And then you could step away and put your hands up and say it's passive. Well, in a post-AI world, AI looks at that and says, oh, great, I can do that. Instantly commoditized. Commoditized to the point of ubiquity, to the point of zero margin, to the point of no longer being profitable. So to come all the way back and answer your question, I think you have to have the goal. And then on a day-to-day basis, you have to outrun this commoditization. And interestingly, I don't even feel like I'm outrunning it. I think a lot of people are. If you're a video editor or graphic designer right now, I do not envy the position that you're in. No matter how big your shop is. I know the folks, I spoke to one of the lead advisors at Design Pickle, which is they sold for 9 figures in a major design company, and their ability to outrun AI is getting more and more tenuous. For me, I feel like I'm being carried forward by a wave because entrepreneurs know they need AI, know they want AI, know they're never going to be able to learn it. So what am I doing? I'm selling AI-enabled EAs. It's like, why would you go learn this yourself? Let me inject a really smart, intelligent, probably much younger human, and they're going to embed this in your business. And so I don't have to outrun. I think I need to be carried by. And that's my thesis is long-term goal, short-term, very frantic, hyper obsessive mobilization against what I'm seeing right now. I think if people can't be nimble in this environment, I don't think they survive. And I actually think that's okay. I think AI solves for that too. To be frank, I think 80%, because Sam Putty said this, or maybe it was Sam Putty, I think it was on My First Million on a podcast. He talked about the K-shaped AI economy. 80% of people fall to zero from an efficiency perspective. And that's okay because we just pay them to stay home. Like universal basic income becomes an a priori prerequisite. We experience massive deflationary events because AI does make everything so much easier. And we can pay the whole world to stay at home and be healthy and safe and watch Netflix. And we'll just nationalize Netflix. That's what we'll do. And it'll be a great environment for artists, musicians, and painters and people that want to do things for the sake of themselves. And 20% of people become weaponized assassins who just solve all the world's problems and create all this stuff. And that's okay too. My question for everybody is, do you want to be part of the 80% or the 20%? If you want to be the 80%, don't even worry about passive income generation because it's coming and it'll be UBI. And a lot of the smartest people in the world have already seen this. OpenAI did the largest UBI study ever done because they knew what they were doing. If you want to be the 20% that's actually still in the game, you have to be every day you wake up and you move and you run and you work. And for some of us, that's actually really exciting. And for some people, that sounds like really fatiguing. And it's just a matter of choosing what side of the fence you choose to be on.
It's interesting as you're talking about that. I'm actually flashing back to when artificial intelligence just came on the scene. And I'm sure you'll remember, like I remember, oh, no jobs are going to be replaced. This is a great technology and it'll just make life utopian. Reminded me when what we now call the internet or the World Wide Web, when it first came on board, very utopian, how it's going to be all good and roses everywhere. Unfortunately, it's the human condition. But my second thought was, okay, Jeffrey, don't believe that no jobs are going to be lost. Massive jobs are going to be lost. But my second thought was, okay, look around, Jeffrey. And most of the jobs today, many of them didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So yes, there's going to be massive job layoffs from AI, but there's also going to be new jobs that we can't even think of. We can't even imagine yet coming on stream, and hopefully better jobs for humankind than what we have right now. So perhaps that utopian vision in me, a little bit muted compared to the big picture one is there. But what's interesting with what you're doing, and I'd love your take on this. So with Pareto Talent, you're taking talented, smart people outside of the US who benefit from an exchange rate and lack of opportunity. You're pairing that with AI to make them even that much more efficient to leverage off of their just innate abilities. To me, it seems like a recipe for terrific success when handled properly. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think AI is always going to be a bottom-up initiative. And that's true for most innovation. Most innovation can't come top-down because you are viewing things from a bird's eye perspective. Vision comes top-down. So vision and direction, of course, is top-down. Innovation comes bottom-up. It's the person on the assembly line saying, oh, you know what? We should actually use this instead of that because this will make it faster, easier, better, more efficient. And that's been true almost across the board. If you look at most of the major innovations, they generally come from within large organizations that are too bureaucratic to accept the innovation. And then whoever came up with it spins off and does their own micro innovation. And then they grow and become bureaucratic. And then this flywheel continues. So you might as well allow that to be a feature, not a bug, and begin embedding people in your organization that can help with this bottom-up innovation and make that the key performance indicator. So hire somebody to do the job and then let them know my expectation for you is to over-index in the direction of AI, over-index in the direction of how do you scale your endeavor? How do you actually work yourself out of a job? And then and this is really important, you align incentives. Because if I know I'm going to work myself out of a job, I'm not going to do it unless working myself out of a job means that I get a better job for more money.
Kasim, as you're talking about that, I don't know, you might have heard of these startups, maybe not. Apple, Microsoft, I don't know if you've heard of them. Back in the day, there was this behemoth, Bell Laboratories,
Right.
that effectively developed the operating system that became for the Mac and later Windows and the mouse and all these other things. But these two scrappy startups, to your point, came along bottom up. Their founders had a vision with it, Jobs and Gates, and took that, and the rest is history, as they say. So
As they
history seems to
say.
be repeating itself, but you're absolutely right in what you're saying. So if we bring this back to today, right now, entrepreneur, founder, business owner who's listening to the two of us talk, they're thinking about their organization. And it doesn't matter if it's manufacturing or high tech, AI is pervasive, it's going everywhere. Being where you've been, this master delegator, you're now building AI into this. You're finding talent, incredible talent worldwide that's been underserved, underrecognized, and giving them opportunities. So, as an entrepreneur in first world countries, I hate using that term, but we'll go with it for a moment. So, an entrepreneur in the US, as an example, how should I be thinking about this? What should I be looking at and possibly doing or not doing?
It's mildly counterintuitive. I wouldn't hire for skill, I'd hire for will. So this is why I tell everybody their first hire should be an executive assistant because it's a flywheel. It's an incubator. Flywheel is probably not the right way to define it. It's an incubator. You hire an EA and you just give them a whole bunch of different tasks. And here's what happens. You give a human being 10 things to do. They're going to suck at two of them. They're just not going to be good. They're going to do six passively. Check the box. We're great. You did the job. I'm proud of you. And they're going to do two better than any human you've ever encountered in your entire life. And for some weird reason that I still don't understand, the entire entrepreneurial world looks at the two things they suck at. And we're like, all right, we're going to get you there, kiddo, and I'll give you a performance improvement program, and you're going to shadow Sally because Sally's good at this, and blah, 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 blah. And the key is just don't make them do those two things and go index in the direction of the things that they're extraordinary at, because every human is a miracle. I believe that as a literal truth and a religious truth. Every human being is a miracle. Give them the opportunity to be a miracle and get the hell out of their way. So find what they're good at and then make that their role. The problem is you can't, it's the corridor principle. You can't do it from the outside. You can't assume, oh, this is my first EA. I like to say my first EA became my director of social. My second EA became my director of automation. My third EA became my CTO. I didn't know going into it that my first EA was going to be great at social. We found that out together. I didn't know going into it that my second EA was going to be, actually funny, the EA that became my director of automation was not a great EA. She was unbelievably potent human that did not rote and routine work. And a lot of EA work is rote and routine work, but she had crazy mind for processes, like brilliant. And so I was like, oh, let's move you in this direction. That's how I would be looking at employment. It's not the employee's job to comply with your wishes. It's your job to go see where they're a miracle and unleash them in your business.
And so, from that perspective, working with the EA, working with someone who's not from the US, what should we know that we're not told when we bring somebody on board that's probably going to annoy the heck out of us, make us say, did I make a mistake?
Oh, yeah, there's a bunch. There's cultural differences, language differences, time zone differences. I'll give you some specific examples that are probably violently racist and also, in my experience, true. I'll slander my own environment first. My father's Pakistani, so I'm allowed to say this. My mom's white, my dad's Pakistani. I'm multicultural. It gives me kind of a, interesting view and perspective on the world and society. Pakistanis are late for everything all the time. If a Pakistani tells you Friday at noon, it means Monday at 4. And you can just beat your head against the wall trying to get these people to be on time. And sometimes there's some movement there as they understand the expectation, or you just build that into the standard operating procedure and you get to benefit from this amazingly potent, forgive me for saying, amazingly cheap labor force that for whatever culturally, timing just isn't as important to them. And which makes sense if you look at it again, if you zoom out a little and you just look at it from a geographic perspective, if you're in a snowy environment, time is important because being late kills people. If you're in a tropical environment, timing doesn't matter as much because, oh, you're late. Sorry, I got to hang out in the sun a little bit longer. And that's just been my understanding of things. I don't know that's why it is. The Filipinos are docile. They have a really hard time self-advocating and standing up for themselves and pushing back on authority, which means they'll suffer in silence unless you give them very clear conduits for providing feedback. Eastern Europeans don't like doing things the wrong way. They'll actually say no. You come to them and say, hey, I know this should be a square. Best practices say this should be a square. The client wants a circle. They won't do it. They just will not do it. They just refuse. And so you end up in these positions where they're not afraid to tell you their baby's ugly. North Africans use very flowery language, which in Middle Easterners are the same way. You have to learn some of these cultural nuances that can be so, so, so frustrating when you're not aware of them. But once you've committed to overcoming them, they're actually really not only easy, but beautiful. Because here's the flip side of the Pakistani being late for every damn thing. I've never met a group of people willing to work nights and weekends more fervently than those folks. They'll stay up late to get a job done. They'll work weekends to get a job done. They'll work through holidays to get a job done because it cuts both ways. Try getting an Eastern European to work nights and weekends if that's not been on the job. You know what I mean? No, the business could go down. I don't care. This is my PTO and I'm taking it off. They're very like Prussian in that way. Those nuances are important. They're just, and are these stereotypes? Yeah, absolutely. Are stereotypes for a reason? You bet they are. And so you can also back into that. I like Latin America for a lot of reasons. Latin Americans are culturally, I think, the closest in alignment, even closer to us than Western Europeans because we watch the same movies, listen to the same music. The Latin American accent isn't as repellent to your more conservative demographic. Asian accents we've been abused by because of call centers. And so if I put my dad on the phone with my Trump supporting client's pissed. But if I put my Trump supporting client on the phone with a Latin American EA, it could be his neighbor. It's a Christian country, which means that they're more aligned with our holidays, which is a practical reality that's really important. And the time zones aren't that big a difference. So if you're not sure where to go to Latin America, unbelievable labor pool. They're not as technically proficient as the Asians, again, as a stereotype. But that's okay because you probably don't need a software developer. People think they do and they don't. Just putting up with those little nuances. Again, it goes back to failing. Fail a couple times, make a couple mistakes. The Filipinos have a 13th month in their salary. So remember, when you're negotiating salary with a Filipino, and they don't like to negotiate, by the way, because it's very combative. But when you promise a salary to a Filipino, you have to pay that number 12 times. And then at the end of the year, you have to pay it a 13th. So factor that into your actuary tables. Little things like that.
Nuances, they are everything. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
stereotypes, yeah, you're right. They're there for a reason. Now, you also said something interesting that for a lot of people is easy to gloss over, but let's circle back to it. Bottom up. So, Jeffrey, start with an EA, find a brilliant EA, and that could be your future president. That could be your future business partner. And
Oh,
from the
dude.
outside looking in, when we hear that, no way. Cosmo, what are you thinking? No way. How can an
Yeah.
EA go from an entry level EA, executive assistant, doing manual, menial kinds of things, to running a company, to being a business partner? How does that work?
They're hiding in plain sight. And I'll tell you something, and this will get mildly sexist here for a minute. I read something, and I think the study is actually really easy to find. So forgive me for not citing it from memory, but it's accessible online with a quick Google. Men will apply for a job when they feel, I think it was 60% qualified. Women wait to apply for a job until they feel 100% qualified. So as employers, pay attention to the women that are working for you because they're hiding from you and they don't feel qualified. And so they actually kind of need to be pulled out of their comfort zone a little bit. And they end up being some of the best employees I've ever had. The gal that ran Solutions 8 for me, Leandra, my COO, the gal that built Starter PPC for me, Regina, the gal that I mentioned earlier, Julianne, who ran my automation department. I had to coax them out of hiding. I'm like, hey, I really think you're capable of this. And they were some of the most extraordinary employees I've ever had in my entire life. Yvonne, the young man I mentioned who became my CTO and then my business partner, he was young. I think he's still young. He's 26 years old, but I was 22, I think, when I hired him, 21. Most people wouldn't look at him and think, oh, you could be an integral part of my organization. Why not? Why not? So I think they're hiding in plain sight, and it's up to us as entrepreneurs to have the vision to see the beauty in this human being and say, you know what, I actually think you could take this and run with it.
And that's been my experience as well in terms of the female perspective versus the male perspective. Saw that in the e-learning company, and that continues. Well, Kassam, this has just been amazing. We are bumping up against some time. And so we're going to go into wrap up mode. And it's a fun question. It's actually a tradition here on the Deep Wealth podcast. It's both my privilege and honor where every guest is asked the same question. So when you think of the movie Back to the Future, you have that
Mhm.
magical DeLorean car that will take you to any point in time. So I want you to imagine now it's tomorrow morning. This is the fun part. The DeLorean car, it's outside, curbside, and the door is open, is waiting for you to hop on in, what you do. You're now going to go to any point in time, perhaps when you're a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be. What would you tell your younger self in terms of life lessons or life wisdom? Or, hey, Kasim, do this, but don't do that.
Mm.
Kasim, what would that sound like for you?
I think I'd go right back to like just post-pubescence, like 13, 14. So anxious to get started. And I'd convince myself, which would be very hard, I'd convince myself that the shortcut is the long way, and the long way is actually the fast way. That's the way. And so I spent the first majority of my cognizant life trying to take the shortcut, trying to do it fast, trying to hack and cheat and just get it now. And it wasn't until I finally decided that's too hard and it's too painful and there's too much friction. And I just put my head down and I just did the work. And all of a sudden, it just started happening and way faster than I expected. So people hear 10,000 hours and they get overwhelmed, or they hear 20 years and they get overwhelmed. And start now. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is today. Everybody's heard the quote, but there's so much truth to it. So shortcuts the long way is the right way.
Love that. The shortcut's the long way and the long way is the right way. So much truth, so much wisdom to that. And Deep Wealth Nation, run with that. Take that. Magnify that. Leverage that. And before we wrap up, if a listener has a question, they want to start working with you, they want to learn more what you're doing with these brilliant minds at Prieto Talent, Kasim, what would be the best way to reach you online? Where would that be?
They can go to kasim.me. It's KASIM.me. All my links are there. My entire portfolio of companies is accessible, and including a link to Pareto Talent. So we'd love to help them find an EA.
Wonderful. And at this point, Kasim, congratulations. It's official. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Wealth Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies, stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post-exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribes, it's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank. It's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.